Well, it's that time again. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the interview with Craig-Veltri.
Thank you, Megan Pennington, and welcome to, to the interview. I have played on several of her writers' rounds at the long since demolished Blue Room in Nashville between 2016 and 2017. However, until this past month, I had yet to set foot in the room and on the stage where she has hosted the Monday open mic for over 40 years, the Bluebird Cafe. I've heard the Bluebird referred to as Ellis Island for Music Row and for aspiring writers. Though the room
Yes.
can only seat 70 people, the Bluebird Cafe has been the launching pad for many of the most successful writers on Music Row. It's where Garth Brooks not only heard the dance for the first time, but where he landed his first deal with Capitol Records. Fast forward to the 21st century, the Bluebird Cafe is also where 14-year-old Taylor Swift was discovered by Scott Borchetta of Big Machine Records. So you might understand now why it took me nearly 10 years to clear the online sign-up process for the Bluebird Cafe open mic. So many people want to get in for their shot at being discovered, or merely to say, I played the Bluebird. When our guest is not hosting in this legendary venue, the St. Louis native serves as a songwriting consultant and teacher. Having had chart success herself, namely 1993's I Guess You Had to Be There, a top 20 hit for Lori Morgan, her precise insight into the craft is worth a follow on social media and considering booking a seat at one of her many workshops. Recording in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and calling in from Nashville, Tennessee, here she is, Barbara Cloyd. Barbara, welcome to the interview.
Thank you.
Now, your background initially is in theater. You have a degree in theater from the University of Iowa, excuse me, and many
Yep.
people have asked me why I never went into acting, even though I seem to have the gift of gab and a natural ham. Well, the honest answer I give them is that music actually pays better. And that's a lot of the reason you got into it. So is that to say that your writing began in college?
I think my writing began in high school, but it wasn't anything I took seriously. You know, I was into musical theater and I know I wrote my first couple songs in high school, but they just kind of popped out one day. And then during college, I started writing a little more, but still it was just from inspiration. And then I heard about Nashville and the songwriting scene here, and that sounded good. So I knew I didn't want to be in St. Louis anymore, so I just kind of picked up and sold everything that wouldn't fit in my Ford Granada and moved to Nashville.
There's a model I hadn't heard of in quite some time, and
Yeah.
probably for good reason. But so is that to say that back then you were, because Nashville back then, I've often said since Nashville was Music City, but it was never specified. But back around when you got there, it was decidedly a country city and a country music scene. Is that to say you were going in there as a country fan and a country writer?
Well, I didn't grow up on country music. I grew up on folk music of the 60s and 70s and all the musical theater records my parents had. But um, as I kept listening to the radio, I found myself relating more to what I heard on country radio. And about that time, the movie Urban Cowboy came out.
John
And
Travolta, yeah.
that was sort of the first big wave of slicking up the country sound a little bit so that things weren't quite as twangy. Everything was a little bit better in tune. And so um, I knew I wanted to do something with my music besides play bars in St. Louis. And I didn't think I was hip enough for LA or tough enough for New York, and Nashville was only a 5 hour drive from home. So uh, that plus the fact that I liked a lot of what I was hearing on country radio and I'd heard about the songwriting scene there. So that's what prompted the move.
Perhaps a digression, but do you go back to St. Louis often? Because you did say that you felt like you were immediately at home once you hit Nashville. But do you get back to the Lou at all?
I do. I do. Two of my, I have a friend that I met in the third grade, And we've stayed friends all these years, and I've kind of become the extra daughter in her family. So
No.
I get back a couple times a year to see them.
Yeah. How soon after you got to Nashville did you become linked up with the Bluebird?
I would say 3 years.
And that would mark you. The Bluebird had just opened at that time. If nobody's ever been in the audience listening right now has ever been to the Bluebird, I'm sure many of you are thinking that it's going to be almost like going into the Ryman. We're going into some random bar. It's a strip
Yeah,
mall in in South Nashville, Green Hills, which has been made harder to find thanks to new construction
yeah.
in the intervening years next to the building. And however, it is something of a mecca for songwriters, and you were there almost at the start of it. I saw the movie Bluebird that came out a couple of years ago in researching this venue. What I
The
was surprised to
documentary.
hear was it was called a cafe, so I'm not surprised that it was initially a
Right.
restaurant. What I was most surprised at is that it was not initially like a writer's bar, and you were kind of coming in as it was making that changeover. Um, what can you talk about your memories of just those early days of the Bluebird and that transition, if at whatever point you came into it?
Well, when I first started going to the Bluebird, like any place else, you could smoke and people would talk. And it really was kind of a hangout for a lot of the musicians and songwriters. Like most Nashville sessions are like 10, 2, and 6. And so, yeah, 10, 2, and 6. And so then after the people would be done with their session, they would just come into the Bluebird. The back door stayed unlocked, and a lot of the guys would park out back and come through the back door. And people like Pat Alger and Vince Gill and Mike Henderson and Ralph Murphy, they would just come down there and hang out. And so I had seen, I had gone to the Sunday Writers Night, and one night the regular host wasn't there, Gail Terry. And so the next time I saw her, I said, "Oh, hey, I used to host an open mic in St. Louis, so if you ever need somebody to fill in, I'd be happy to do that." And she said, "Oh, well, I'll be gone in September, so if, you want one of those nights." I go, "Yeah, that'd be great." And then when the time came, she said, "I gave Amy my notice. I'm not going to keep doing this, so if you're interested, let her know." And I did, and she came down and checked me out. I think she liked the fact that I could run sound, so she didn't have to pay two people. And then Monday I had a meeting with her, and she told me she had decided to start having 2 shows a night. And she said she was at the point then, she said, "I had to ask myself, am I a restaurant that has music, or am I a music club that serves food?" And I decided I'm a music club that serves food, and I want to have 2 shows a night, and I think a couple of those could be for songwriters. Are you interested?
Having been there that long, maybe not. So I'm sure you have right at the tip of your tongue. When I saw so and so, everybody in that room knew that it was written in the stars that they were going to be one of the people that you couldn't tell the story of the music industry without speaking their name. But can you think of somebody in those 40 years that got on that stage and it was a slow burn? It was kind of somebody that developed into that.
Well, that's a good question. A lot of writers, a lot of the songwriters that have the hits you've heard of, but you haven't heard their name. Kenny Chesney played it several times, and I didn't think that much of him.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I could see that, he was good, but he just didn't, I thought he was kind of vanilla. I wasn't impressed. I remember there was, at that time I was booking one of the early shows, and there was another guy who was booking the rest of them, and I remember him coming up to me and going, "That guy with the hat, are you going to book him on your early show?" I'm like, "No, you can have him." You know. But I have to say, Kenny Chesney, who he is now, is very different than who he was then, and obviously somebody saw his potential back then, but I just wasn't one of them.
It seems like he just had to take a couple trips to the beach. If you compare his early, like if you compare Greatest Hits Volume 1 to Greatest Hits Volume 2, a good country artist, a good, somebody who can make a lot of hits for country radio, international superstar in the latter half of his build. So that definitely makes sense for his career. Let's talk about your career, because in your introduction to your open mic, you used the phrase "I got lucky" and Lori Morgan cut one of my songs, and it became a top 20 hit. Of course, I'm talking about
top 10.
I guess according to my top 10.
Okay. Top, it went to 15 in Billboard and 10 in Radio and Records, which was also a viable chart at the time. So most people now, when they introduce me, they'll say a number one hit, and I just got tired of correcting them. So it's moved up in the charts since it was on the radio.
Well, and I think time, in retrospect, just how wistful and sentimental. I kind of look at that song as kind of. It was just my imagination running away with me by the Temptations and that kind of template, as far as a song is concerned. But you use the word luck. Why do you, as somebody who understands the craft so much and understands the form of the craft, would you concede that the saying that luck is really just preparation and timing with that particular song?
Yeah, but timing is a big thing. I mean, How did the hit happen, do you think that? I co-wrote it with a guy named John Robin, and he met a couple, Jewel and Barry Coburn, who were new in town, and Barry came to be an artist manager, and Jewel came to start a publishing company, and he hit it off with Jewel, and he did single song agreements with her, and she liked that one, so she signed it. And one of the writers she had was Angela Cassett, and a couple of the artists that Barry ended up managing were Keith Urban and I'm going to forget. Anyway, he managed Keith Urban.
Right.
And so they were very successful, and then Lori had cut Something in Red. That had been a huge hit for her. And so when they were making her next album, her producer called Jewel Coburn and said, would you send us some of Angela's songs? We love Angela's songs. So she sent him a cassette that had 3 of Angela's, and she stuck ours on the end.
So and obviously they picked it up and they liked it. If you can take the scalpel to your own song, what is it about that song you believe that made it viable to a record label?
Well, one thing we did that I didn't even really understand that you were supposed to do at the time was we made it really conversational. I remember I kind of outlined to John where I saw the song going, and he liked it. So he started writing it more like a story. And I said, wait a minute, let's just start over and write it like it's a conversation. Her husband walks in the door. What's the first thing she's going to say? Hello, honey, how was your day? So I think that's one thing that made it work. And then I kind of knew before we started how much we were going to give away at each point. And then we had this big twist in the bridge that Nashville loves a good twist. So, and it was very surprising. You weren't expecting it. So.
We're here with Barbara Cloyd on the Craig-Veltri interview, proud member of the Scarfire Media Podcast Network. For more on Scarfire Media, visit our brand new website, scarfiremedia.net. That's the old brand, scarfiremedia.com. Check out all the great podcasts on the Scarfire Media Podcast Network. Cool Brother Podcast, Emmy Susani's brand new podcast, Mommy Rockstar, coming soon. Thank you for listening to the Craig-Veltri interview. Like, share, and subscribe. So, fast forward 1998, that's where you mark the beginning of your consulting. I think anybody who breaks through the wall, everybody's asking for advice and how did you do it? How'd you do it? You're at this time, you're still with the Bluebird at that point and up to this point as well. But my question I'm coming to is, when did you decide, okay, I'm giving good advice. people seem to be succeeding with this advice. Let's make a business out of this.
Well, it was about money. I mean,
Duh.
I was waiting tables and cleaning houses before I had the hit. And then it was very nice to have some bunch of mailbox money. And but then that started dwindling. And then I started hosting a lot of writers' nights around Nashville. I was doing 3-4 nights a week for a while there, including the Bluebird. And I just wanted to make more money. I didn't want to have to go back to cleaning houses or waiting tables.
Of course.
And there were a couple guys in town people were paying them for their advice, and they'd each only had one hit. And I was like, well, I've had one hit, maybe people will pay me. So I looked up what they were charging, and I charged the same thing, and I made a little brochure, and somebody made a website for me. And Barry Dean was a writer that I'd given some feedback to, who found it very helpful. And he encouraged me to do it, and when he found out I was going to do it, he went out and registered my website domain for me. So,
well, you use the phrase I only had the one hit. It is difficult. I've heard it said to get lightning in a bottle twice, and it's not to say that you haven't stopped writing. It's not to say that what you do is invaluable to a lot of folks. Is it something that you're actively pursuing? Are you still trying to get anything else into the chart? You're shaking your head now.
I don't have the stomach for it. You have to have a really thick skin, and you have to have a really fierce work ethic. And I am way too thin-skinned, and I don't like to work that hard. I like to get up I've developed this life where I do what I want when I want, and I like that. And if you're a writer, you've got to have, to be a successful professional writer, you have to eat, sleep, live, and breathe songwriting. Most people, when they start out, they have 8 or 10 writes a week, and it's a lifestyle. And I can say all this in hindsight. This is something that I have come to understand how the process evolved. At the time, I was just trying to make some money, and more people seemed to need advice than there seemed to be a shortage of people who could help songwriters learn and grow, but there was no shortage of songs. So I just leaned into that because I needed to make an income. And over time now, it's such a different world now, and I just don't. I still love great songs, and every now and then I'll get an idea that's personal to me, and I write it. I still enjoy playing my songs and playing them out from time to time. But I'm very happy with what I do.
Well, I know better than to ask a songwriter what their process is in the terms of music or lyrics first. I've found in my writing that it really just depends on how the phrase hits me, how the melody hits me, when it hits me. That is to say, I find it more effective to pin down a writer's method, as in this question: are you a waiter or a writer? Are you somebody that is diligently writing daily, hourly, whenever something hits you, it's on paper? Or are you somebody that's kind of waiting for the muse to hit?
If you want to be a pro writer, you can't wait for the muse to hit. So for me, now, I just wait for the muse to hit because I'm not trying to be a professional writer.
Right.
When I was, co-writing is the big thing in Nashville. Almost everybody co-writes.
Oh, yeah.
And I found that to be very helpful because you may not have any inspiration, but you sit with somebody and you start tossing ideas back and forth. Or a lot of times, you get to be friends with your co-writers. You get, as I heard one writer say, you tell your co-writers things you wouldn't tell your husband, So.
Or a therapist.
Or a therapist, So, well, you should tell your therapist. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, yeah, it's
But
useless to not do
it's
that.
kind of, I know. I never understood people who lied to their therapist. That didn't ever make sense to me. But
It's like going to the gym and just reading a magazine, basically.
yeah, there you go. There you go. Setting the pedals on automatic or something. So
You can do that.
you could do that. It would be a lot easier. You wouldn't sweat as much. Um, for me, I'm a very idea-driven person and a lyric-driven person. If I write for myself, I can write melodies. When I'm trying to write for the radio, I always looked for guys that were better musicians than me that could come up with the cool guitar riffs and the really interesting chord voicings and chord progressions and grooves and signature licks and all of that, because that's where I'm really weak. So, it can start from anywhere. Sometimes it would be a co-writer coming in talking about what was going on in his life that day. And it's like, oh, how about this for a hook? And then sometimes it would just be, you've been playing around with any riffs, and so they just start noodling on guitar and show me some riffs they thought of, and I go, oh, that makes me think of, like, you've just had a big fight with somebody, but now you're calming down and you're going to get back together. So sometimes the inspiration would come from the music. A lot of times it would just be an idea, something I wanted to write about, and then I'd find a hook to go with it. Sometimes it would be a hook, something like when I wrote I Guess You Had to Be There. That sounded like a really cool song title. And so I thought, okay, that's a cliche I haven't heard written yet. How can I twist that and make it mean something different? So that didn't come from my heart. I mean, I found the heart of the song as we were writing it, but that was just me playing around with hooks, trying to be crafty and clever. So I don't, there's all different ways to go about it. But for me, before I start writing, I want to know, what is the hook? What is that hook trying to say? What is the message that we're trying to convey? What's the point of the song? And what's the groove? Like, what's the melodic groove, tempo, what's the feel of the music going to be? And if I have those two things to start with, the rest of it's just patience and work.
Well, you do teach a lot of the basics and the building blocks of this. I'll ask a version of this question later on in the No Kidding questionnaire. But as far as just getting into the teaching and into the craft of it, it's often said that you learn the most from teaching. So my question is, what have you, in teaching and in consulting, what have you found most valuable? What have you learned from that?
How long you got?
I loaded, I know, but
Yeah. Um, Probably the thing that I talk to people about the most, if they're trying to write for Nashville especially, is nobody's reading your mind. You have all the information. You know exactly what you mean by everything you say. But
that's why everybody likes their own brand, basically.
exactly. But all we know is what you put in the lyrics. So you have to tell enough of the story to make people interested. And another thing that is really clear to me, especially like I'll get applications for my workshop, and everybody sends between 3 and 10 songs, so I'll have 5 days where I'm sitting down listening to hundreds of songs, and anytime somebody can give me a visual picture or some specific details, it just pops. All the generalities, all the clever ways you can describe emotion don't hold a candle to tell me what happened. The story is the heart of it, and if you can bring it to life with visual pictures and specific details, if you want me to know how you feel, you can tell me how you feel, but if you want me to feel what you're feeling, tell me what happened.
Mm-hmm. Do you have in fact, I'll phrase it this way, because I have my own answers to this question. I've heard some really good ones. And I'm surprised I don't ask this question more often on the program. But the greatest compliment I believe you can give a songwriter is, "I wish I wrote that one." So my question to you is, what is one song that you wish you had written?
Moments by Emerson Drive. It's by Sam and Annie Tate and Dave Berg, but it was a hit for Emerson Drive.
I'm not familiar with the song. Describe it, at the very least.
Well,
And what is it about that made you wish for it?
it is perfectly written. I mean, as far as the craftsmanship of the song, it doesn't miss a beat. It does so all the inner rhymes and all the, the repeating phrases and all the visual description and the way it lays the story out. You get to know, it's about a homeless guy who is walking out on a bridge. No, it's about a man who is just lost his relationship. He's suicidal. And he
Right.
walks out onto a bridge, and this homeless man follows him out there and talks to him and talks him out of it.
It's like a scene out of It's a Wonderful Life, actually.
Yes, maybe. It's just, and the looking at me now, you might not know it, but I've had my moments, and the homeless guy is telling him about tells him about some moments he's had in his life, and then the guy that was going to jump is telling him about moments he's had in his life, and then at in the bridge, the old guy, it says like somewhere around a trash can fire tonight. I bet he's telling his story one more time. I've had my moments like that one night on the E Street Bridge when a young man almost ended it, and it does better than any. It does as well as any work of art I have ever experienced. Illustrates the value of every life. That's my kind of song. A lot of people will say, "Oh, I like Up on the Roof because it's got a good groove and I can dance to it," but I like my preference runs toward the heavy stuff.
Well, as far as I know that any artist and anybody who runs a business, it's not if you got something cooking and got stuff going for you, it's what and when. So what's going on, at least for the next year, for one Barbara Cloyd?
Well, I've got 2 more writers' nights and 2 more Play for Publisher workshops scheduled, and twice a month little free group critique sessions at my house so they can stay in touch with each other and so I can stay in touch with them. So I have those scheduled up. And, other than that, I'm, taking my dog to the dog park and planting flowers in my yard. And I'm old, I'm ready to... this is what I'm going to be when I grow up. I'm not... I'm gratefully and joyfully maintaining the life that I have, and
Well, I'm older than I look, and you do not look that old, if I may say so. But I think we can all aspire to that when we all grow up. And we have a nice way of closing here on the Craig-Veltri interview. It is called the No Kidding Questionnaire. A couple of rapid-fire questions. First thing that comes to your mind. Whenever you're ready. And away we go. Childhood celebrity crush.
I guess Paul McCartney.
Paul McCartney, popular one on this episode. What was it about him? The mop top, was he in fact an inspiration for you to start writing songs?
I just like their music, I like they got so overhyped. And so, I'm old enough that I saw them on the Ed Sullivan Show live. And I was already rolling my eyes, ready to not like them because I thought all the...
What was your favorite subject in school?
History, probably.
Did you have a favorite topic specifically in history? Like,
I had a teacher in the 10th grade, I think it was, and she was very shrewd, and at the time my father was the chairman of the Democratic Township and she was the co-chairman.
Okay.
So she had a very pragmatic view of history, and she had a way of showing the motivation behind things. Like, she explained how the alliance between the Catholic Church and the nobles of the day helped build nation states, because the church told the peasants that they had to do what the church said or they couldn't go to heaven, and then the church said you have to pay allegiance to your lords. So just that kind of pragmatic, like looking at the,
Yeah,
the
not so much
reality
that
of
it happened, but why it happened.
Yeah.
Those are the best teachers, and we need more of them more than ever.
Yeah.
What occupation other than your own would you like to attempt?
Oh, I'm completely. Can it be like completely impractical, ridiculous? I could never do it?
Absolutely.
Ballet.
Ballet.
I
Okay.
love ballet. Yeah.
Are you a frequent viewer of, or somebody who goes to the ballet theater in Nashville? Do you?
Yeah, I have. I got this year was for the first time I got season tickets to the Nashville Ballet, which is a wonderful company, by the way.
Did you? Did you take I mean, theater major. I would assume that that was a huge component of it.
Yeah, I was a terrible dancer. There's a brain quality called spatial relations, and I scored very low on that. And so it's not that I couldn't do the steps, it's just that I couldn't learn them, I couldn't put them together in a sequence. And
that's my problem.
Yeah, it was not my forte, but I'm in awe of, like, they did I read a article where they studied who are the most fit athletes, and ballet dancers came out at the top because of flexibility, strength, and endurance.
I've often said that I am the whitest dude that you know. More accurately, I'm one of the least athletic people, and I think you've just put a name to it.
Yeah.
The spatial relations. All that to say, I can't dance either. So, but on the other side of the coin, what job? I don't care how many bags of money have been handed to you, Barbara. Would you never want to attempt? And it can be something that you've done already.
Yeah. I worked on a roach coach, one of those little, I guess now they call them food trucks, but back then it was like not. Actually, a food truck today would probably be okay. This was way back
I'd eat off the floor.
They were just, it was really trashy. That was the worst job.
What did y'all serve other than roaches?
Oh, well, I don't think we actually had roaches, but sandwiches and chips and things like that.
Yeah.
But I would never, ever want to be a customer service rep.
I've done that. I don't recommend it.
No. And then, also sales. I hate sales. I can't. And people are like, oh, you'd be so good at sales. You're so articulate. You're so outgoing. No, I don't want to talk anybody into anything. I can't, I tried it and I hated that.
You mentioned the thin skin. You definitely can't have that in the.
No.
Well, and so much of what we do is really salesmanship. I mean, I think you can have the best song in the world, but I think a lot of the people on Music Row, and really in any business, I don't want to single out Music Row on this, they tend to hire people that they like. So. That's where the politics of it all really comes from.
Oh, yeah.
So, but moving on with the questionnaire, what is your go-to food on a road trip?
Pretzels.
Mm-hmm. Preferred shape, preferred texture, sourdough, just plain brand.
Rolled gold, tiny twists.
Oh, those are good.
Yeah. Well, and they're. Especially if I'm tired, I can just kind of keep eating them, and it helps me stay awake. And they don't, you can't really finish a bag of them. They're huge,
Oh.
So, like a bag of potato chips is gone in, a half hour, and then you're still tired. So.
Well, Probably not a bag of pretzels for this one, but if you could have dinner with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be?
Oh, that's a good one. I'll say Dolly. I'll give you the safe answer and say Dolly Parton.
I mean, she, has been very much a mainstay in Tennessee. You've been around. Have you crossed paths with her?
No, I've never met her.
No. Well, uh, I would assume she's an influence. What would just to say you met her, or is it more than that?
Oh, she's just an amazing human being.
Mm-hmm.
She gives money away. She has that, she has created great success for herself, and she has used that success to do so many good things for people. And she speaks out about, she doesn't get super political, but, she'll speak out when it's needed, she's amazing.
Anybody that ever says, celebrities should keep their mouths shut. Oh yeah, please stand in front of Dolly Parton and say that, please. I'd love to see the interaction.
I think if you have a platform, you can do with it whatever you want.
Agreed.
And if you lose fans, or lose your entire career, like the Dixie Chicks,
The follow-up record afterwards, I'm Not Ready to Make Nice, and all those songs. Still, Traveling Soldier 2, great record. I wouldn't trade that controversy for that record or for anything. Bless them for standing for what they believe in. I'm Team Mains until the day I die. So, this might fall into to this next question, but Barbara Cloyd, what is your biggest pet peeve?
Rude people.
Rude people.
Yeah, like people that don't put their shopping carts back, or people that, people that are rude to the customer service people.
Or the wait staff.
Wait staff, or just, I mean, we all have to share this planet, so, pay attention, and, the fact that somebody is where you want to be doesn't mean that person is in the wrong place.
Normally, this is the last question of the questionnaire, which is this. What is the best advice that anyone has ever given you?
Okay, this is my favorite piece of advice I ever got. I was at a Nashville Songwriter Association workshop, and this guy named Roger Sovine was explaining to us how Nashville's like a filtering system. And when you come to town, everybody's on an equal level because nobody knows you. You're an unknown quantity. But if you have some talent and you're hanging around and meeting some people, you're going to meet some people that have been there a little longer, who know a few more people. They're going to introduce you around. You're going to click with some of them. And then you've kind of slipped through to the next level of the filter. And then that keeps happening. And then the holes get smaller as you go down the, and then eventually you, but how do you do it? I mean, where do you go? What do you do? What's the process? And he said, don't worry about it. You'll find your way.
and hopefully it's not all the way down through the sieve, basically. Now, this is now that normally is the last question of the questionnaire. But because it has been established that you are a teacher, I like to give the following bonus question, what I like to call the Lonnie Billard, forgive me, sir, memorial question, which goes as follows. Maybe not the best advice that you give your students, but what is the most common advice that you find yourself giving your students?
Get involved with the community. If you want to get cuts, it's as much about the relationships you build as it is about the songs you write. Now more than ever.
This is the part of the program that I think every guest should enjoy the most. We have one more bit of business. It is time for shameless self-promotion. Obviously, we know where to find you on Monday nights in Nashville, Tennessee. Where else can we find you? How can we find you? Plug your pluggables. Barbara, fire away.
You can find me at barbaracloyd.com. I have a bunch of information for songwriters on there and information about my services and my workshops. I have a YouTube channel with videos about the songwriting process, and I am a TikTok star.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, I don't think 5,000 followers quite qualifies as a star.
More than I got.
But I do run into people and they say, "Oh, I love your videos. I watch you on TikTok." So it has gone to my head. So,
But it is worth mentioning. And
yeah.
Barbara, I found your stuff invaluable. I haven't, like I said, I've only been to the Bluebird that one time within the last year. But in starting out and getting to work with you in that early time that I was in Nashville and following your advice on your website, it has been invaluable to me in the years that I've been back and forth to Nashville. And I wanted to just take the opportunity to thank you for that alone.
Well,
And
you're welcome. Thank you for telling me that. That's why I do it.
And thank you again for joining me here today on the Craig-Veltri interview.
My pleasure.
The Craig-Veltri interview, where Craig-Veltri interviews wonderful people, is a production of Scarfire Media, the voice of the independent artist. Written and edited by Craig-Veltri. Your announcer is Megan Pennington. The opening theme, Shut Up, I Love You, written by Trenton Chandler and Craig-Veltri, performed by Craig-Veltri, produced by Jack Gavin. The closing theme, Shine On, written and performed by Craig-Veltri, produced by Brian Cole. Inside the Cabin, the debut album from Moonshine Vagabonds, myself and Mama Megan Pennington, will be available only on Bandcamp March 28th. We will be dropping that record on March 28th, so if you want to hear the album first, you can get the inside track by going to Bandcamp and sending us your human monies to hear all 8 tracks, including the title track, which is already available on streaming. We will be releasing the album in full on streaming sites, including Spotify, including Apple Music, including YouTube Music, including Amazon Music, and all the major retailers, starting on April 4th after our weekend of gigs on April 3rd at High Spirits in Burgestown, Pennsylvania, and April 4th at Antonio's in the Brookline neighborhood of Pittsburgh. Again, the album will be available in full on April 4th, but you guys can hear it first March 28th at midnight by visiting our Bandcamp website. I will put a link to it in the descriptions for the audio and video version of this podcast. Time now to update the event calendar because you must know where I am at all times. Thursday the 19th, Friday the 20th, and Saturday the 21st, 9:45 to 1:45 a.m., Craig-Veltri and the Vagabonds will be playing Tin Roof in Fayetteville, Arkansas. Not only did the University of Arkansas and their men's basketball team win the SEC championship over the past week, they are highly seeded in the NCAA tournament, I should say. And on top of that, on Sunday, the school goes on spring break. It is going to be a wild weekend, so let everybody in that general vicinity know where the party is going to be at Tin Roof, Fayetteville, Arkansas, Thursday the 19th, Friday the 20th, and Saturday the 21st from 9:45 to 1:45 a.m. Then I head back east on my own. On Tuesday the 24th, I head for East Nashville and Honeytree Meadery for their open mic, which I will be a feature act, brought to you by Music City Movement, because as Leslie Nielsen said, there's nothing like a good movement. I'll begin the open mic set at 7:30. For full dates, including Pittsburgh, New York City, and Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, visit my website, craig-veltri.bandsingle.com. For booking info, including full band and this podcast, email me at craig-veltri-official@gmail.com. You can find the interview on Facebook by searching the Craig-Veltri interview, YouTube at Craig-Veltri Music, and you can find me on Instagram, or as my old roommate, the Tommy Thomas, used to call it, Instagirl, at craig.veltri. For Barbara Cloyd, I'm Craig-Veltri, and this has been the Craig-Veltri interview. With that, I'll pass. Shine on. Good.